Hi, my name's Claire and this is Abigail. She's nearly 6 months old and I'm currently on maternity leave from my post as Head of History at St James's Catholic High School in North West London.
I'm Amanda Brown and I'm the Head of the Employment Conditions and Rights Department at the NUT.
When I first discovered I was pregnant, I had a number of questions. One of the first things that I was concerned about was when to tell my head teacher that I was pregnant. We didn't really want to tell anyone about it until the 20-week scan, but at the same time I would have to let people know that I was going for hospital appointments, so I wasn't sure when was the appropriate time to tell my employer.
They need to let their school know as soon as possible because the head teacher will want to put in place measures to make sure that their maternity leave is covered, but also to make sure that they do a risk assessment and to make sure that any necessary steps immediately are taken, just to make sure that the member has a very happy and healthy time at work while they're pregnant. Of course, they do have to let their school know by the 15th week before the expected week of childbirth, but really we'd say that teachers should let their school know before then.
Some of the main issues I began thinking about working during pregnancy is that schools can often be quite hazardous places to be with students rushing around, and I had a particular break duty that was out on a playground with lots of footballs flying about, so that was something that I wanted to sort of take into consideration. Also, I suffer from a bad back, and obviously during teaching you do a lot of sort of standing up, but I realised being pregnant I'll probably do more sitting down, so I wanted to sort of raise the issue of how I could be helped with that. I also encountered a child in my form who had chickenpox, and obviously that's quite a big issue for pregnant ladies, and I wasn't sure what would happen in that incident.
The first thing that a head teacher will want to consider is whether is to do a risk assessment of what measures need to be taken in the classroom and during the teacher's working life.
Ready?
So, for example, teachers who are on playground duties may be particularly concerned about any dangers they may face. They may be very tired, of course, and that can be difficult because the tiredness can often strike in the first trimester, the first 3 months of pregnancy, when perhaps you've not wanted to talk to your school about it.
Good girl.
There may be difficulties around pupil behaviour or playground behaviour that they want to consider and decide whether, in fact, the teacher should be relieved of those duties. But there may be other basic things related to equipment, to chairs, to other things, which, in fact, the teacher will need just to make sure that they are properly safe during their pregnancy.
Good girl. Well done, Abigail.
Teachers can be particularly vulnerable to infectious disease, but of course they may come across them more than most other employees. But certainly if there's any danger, if they're aware of any danger, they should go to their GP and see whether or not they should remain away from work. It's perfectly all right that teachers have a right to remain away from work on full pay if they're attested by their GP to need to be away because of the danger of disease.
As I went on through my pregnancy and began to get bigger and became more tired, I got concerned about what I was physically able to do. Things like taking school trips out, we have an annual sports day, and I wasn't sure whether I would be expected to do all those things still. I was also concerned because I was having to take time off for medical appointments, and I didn't know what I was entitled to and what sort of antenatal care I could have and how I could fit that in with taking time off work.
You really need to think about what you need. So, for example, if you're concerned about going on a school trip or attending a school sports day, talk to your head teacher about what your needs are, and if necessary, get some advice from a general practitioner and support from them to say that you really are not physically fit to do those things.
One of my big concerns was the matter of maternity leave. When you had to inform your employer how long you were going to go for, how your pay was affected during that time, and also your pension contributions during that time too. I sat down with my finance officer, who was brilliant in sort of showing me how my pay would be reduced each month and showing me what I was entitled to. But it was a very difficult sort of matter to understand.
All teachers are now entitled to be away from school for 52 weeks. Some of that may be unpaid, but there are different provisions according to how long you've been employed as to how much pay you can get. but everybody's entitled to at least 52 weeks. Teachers who are entitled to the statutory maternity pay will have, for the first 6 weeks, will have 90% of their normal weekly pay. And then after that, there's a much lower flat rate of around £125 a week, and that goes on for another 33 weeks. Those teachers who are lucky enough to be entitled to the top-up of the Burgundy book will have full pay for the first 4 weeks, and then from the 6th week onwards, for a period of 12 weeks, we'll have another top-up of half pay, and that's additional to the statutory maternity pay in those 12 weeks. To be entitled to the Burgundy book provisions for teachers, you have to have been employed for 1 year, but that's by 11 weeks before the expected week of childbirth. So for that scheme, again, you take your expected week of childbirth and count back 11 weeks from then. And if you've been employed for 1 year, and as I say, that's for not necessarily at your school, but for more than one authority, then you're entitled to the full Burgundy book provisions, which provides a top-up for extra pay.
Once we've worked out all the finances, I then had to decide when I was going to start my maternity leave. I wasn't sure on the rules for that, how early I could start it or how late, so that was something I had to go and find out. Once we'd done that, I then had to write a formal letter to my employer.
The earliest you can choose to take maternity leave is 11 weeks before the expected week of childbirth, but many teachers will want to take it later than that. You can work right up until just before the baby's due, so you'll want to decide according to your health, but also how long after the birth you want to remain on maternity leave.
When I wrote the letter to my head teacher to tell her of my decision, I was concerned about the correct terminology and putting the correct dates in, so I did consult with my finance officer and the union rep, but I also found it very useful to talk to other members of staff who had taken maternity leave themselves.
At least 15 weeks before the expected week of childbirth, you should put in a notification, formal notification to your head teacher, to your authority, saying that you are intending to take maternity leave, giving them the expected week of childbirth, and also telling them that you are intending to return.
Whee! Kind of.
You should also give a copy of something called a MAT B1, which is a form that you can get from your midwife or from your GP, which gives the expected week of childbirth.
You bite my finger.
It'll be assumed that you're going to be away for 52 weeks of maternity leave, unless you say different. So you just return at the end of 52 weeks if that's the time that you're going to be returning. If you want to return earlier than that, then you should give at least 21 days if you're entitled to the Burgundy book provisions, but 8 weeks if you're entitled to the statutory provisions only.
Who's a good girlie? Yeah. Yeah, he's a good girlie.